Well, we can speak now to global affairs analyst Michael Bociurkiw. He joins us live now from New York City by Skype. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. The thing about this deal, it almost seems to have upset the allies as much as the adversaries. Obviously, we understand that it's to counter China in that part of the world. But do you think it was necessary? What do you think the point of it is?
Good to be with you again, Barbara. Well, yes, you're right. I think it's really a continuation of upsetting traditional allies as the abrupt U.S. pullout from Afghanistan did. In fact, I was just in Kiev last weekend at the Yalta European Strategy Summit, and I spoke to John Bolton and people like that, and they're absolutely shocked at the lack of consultation happening between Washington and capitals, Berlin, Paris, and others. So that's going to be a further casualty of this, especially with France. But I think this also signals, Barbara, that the United States, United Kingdom are deservedly worried about China's aggressiveness, especially in Asia Pacific, and particularly in the South China Sea, that there was no other option than to give a reliable partner access to nuclear submarine technology. Huge step politically, militarily, geopolitically.
I mean, we'll get back to the sort of, the response of the allies later. But I suppose, what do you make of China's response? Because that's the whole point of this exercise. So far, what have you made? And how do you think in the long term they will react to this?
China's response is predictable, with a mix of what many of us call these days wolf warrior diplomacy, a lot of harsh words and blusters and threats. I was thinking that Australia must have really negotiated hard for economic benefits from this deal. Why is that so important? Is because many Australian exports, such as barley and wine and coal, are now blocked or severely reduced to China. So they are going to do what they always do, use whatever tools they have to threaten other countries, and they will, I predict anyway, impose more economic kind of sanctions on Australia. So, it's very delicate because Scott Morrison is not the most popular politician in Australia right now. And if Australians begin to feel it in the pocketbook, lost jobs and so on from this deal, it may hurt him politically.
Going back to the impact that it's having with the allies, I mean, the whole of Europe, I guess, apart from the UK, of course, is quite shaken by it, none more so than France. They've described it as a stab in the back, compared the Biden administration to the Donald Trump days, which in certain circles is not a compliment. Do you think that this will be a long-lasting blow to any hope that, once the Trump administration was over, that actually you would have been able to reset relations between the historic allies, Europe and the US?
Sure. Well, again, the sense I got in Europe this visit was that there's growing unease at the United States, not particularly the Biden administration, but the flip-flopping that happens with changes in administration. I think this is an important point because the way things are going right now here in the United States, the sense I'm getting is the Biden term may be exactly that, a one-term president. So if another president comes in, there may be more changes happening. So that really worries Europe. The other thing I'm picking up from the allies is that this sort of provocation, and it's nothing less than that, may accelerate the growing kind of partnership between China and Russia. And you're seeing how big of a growing threat Russia is on the European continent right now. In fact, China has said just recently that a more unstable world requires Beijing and Moscow to work closer together. And by the way, over the pandemic, China and Russia had the most number of high-level meetings, ministerial meetings and deputy minister meetings than any other two partners in the world. So it goes to show you how the two are working together. So China and Russia together versus the United States and its allies, I think people can do some math and figure out what might happen in the end.
All of this happened, it happened yesterday, which I think is exactly a month since the Taliban took control of Kabul, took control of Afghanistan, obviously very damaging to the image of the United States. Do you think that played any part, especially in the way that it was announced? It was announced very quickly, almost secretly.
Yeah, my understanding is it was actually in the works for quite some time, but I think they probably did accelerate the announcement to kind of, improve Washington's image among its allies. But again, there will be some collateral damage, and that will be the U.S. relationship with France. France, by the way, I think is now jockeying for some kind of position within Europe with the exit of Angela Merkel. So that will be interesting to play. But again, so much worry about the lack of guarantees, security guarantees from the United States, especially as China and especially as Russia cast a longer security shadow over the continent. Again, I spoke to people like John Bolton, and they're really, really worried. I can't overestimate that about where relations are going right now between the United States and its traditional allies.
Global affairs analyst Michael Bociurkiw speaking to us from New York City. Michael, always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.